it is an impressive scoreline from England. And Keith, I'm just wondering, you know, if you go back and the struggles that they had, say, at the Euros, at the 14 World Cup, at the 2010 World Cup, you know, the way this team is performing, would, say, the 14 team or even the 16 team from the Euros, would they and the setup have struggled to beat a team like Panama, or were Panama just awful?
When you look at the way Gareth Southgate approaches games, it's in a positive manner. He's trying to take fear out of the equation. When I look at those teams in the last 15 to 20 years, they have played with an element of fear, not particularly wanting to go and joining up with an England team. It's been a bit of a chore. It's a stark contrast to the teams we would have played for Ireland. That was our release from club level if we haven't had a particularly good run. Well, it was an enjoyable environment to come into. But we've played with players, I'm sure Damon's the same. I've played with players that do not want to go and play for England. And that is a horrible thing to say, to not want to play for your country. Whereas he now has created a club-type environment where the players seem to be buying into what he's doing. Tactically, they may fall down. The system, we're going to question when they come up against bigger teams. But in terms of a progression of a team, what he's got at his disposal, I don't think he could have done much more so far.
Eamon, that was one of the points that was made, say, go back to the Iceland thing in 2016 at the Euros, that as the match was going away from them, it was said that some of the players were thinking about the headlines. What way is this going to be in the paper? The Graham Taylor turnip thing and all of those. It's all history now at this stage, but they had those thoughts. So obviously Southgate is constructing something
and just
different.
to confirm what Keith has just said, Paul Scholes retired from international football. I mean, he's one of the greatest players England have ever had. It would have been unthinkable a generation ago for Bobby Charlton to say, I'm not playing for England anymore. But there's been many players, a number of players, who got out of it for that very reason. That I think Wayne Rooney suffered seriously from the expectations that were placed on his shoulders. He wasn't able to cope with them. So it wasn't an enjoyable experience. I think Keith is right. This is an enjoyable experience. You can tell Lingard and Sterling and these guys have bonded. You can see them sitting on the bench playing a little bit of football with their socks. It's that kind of environment that is a pleasure to be in, and the result compounds that. So now they're buzzing and they'll fight for each other. Harry Kane has delivered. He'll be confident. They believe in the set pieces they've worked on in the training ground. That's huge. For everything you do on the training ground, if the set pieces come off, there's nothing more satisfying, is there, than something you've worked on happening in a game, and happening in a World Cup game. You think, wow. And Steve Holland, the coach, will take a lot of pleasure from that and satisfaction from that. So it's good. It's a good news story, a really good news story. They may go overboard. You know, we may see stuff tomorrow that's crazy in the paper, but they've done really well. They failed to beat teams like this again, as Keith and Damon have said so many times in the past.
Just to go back to something Eamon said about Lingard messing about. You can see the jovial nature that they have around the camp. Vardy in the press conference leading up to the game. They're allowed to be themselves, and I think that's important. Roy Hodgson, very structured, very disciplined in his approach. Capello was like an army camp. This is a stark contrast, and if you want to get the best out of players, you have to let them be the way they are at club level.
For example, Gareth Southgate didn't take the smartphones off them. Who took the smartphones off them? Was it Capello? Didn't have the phones. You know, all that stuff, the childish stuff. Southgate appears to be more grown up about it.
You have to hand an awful lot to Southgate. Eamon just said there, the bonding. Like, people think it's needless stuff. He took them off for army days, built up a real group sphere, camaraderie. So I think an awful lot is down to him. I think his dad was in the army, so that's where the link is. But even little stuff like that goes a long way. I've questioned it in the past. Does it mean that much to an English player in a jersey? You know, willing to die for your country. I know it's a bit overboard, it's a football match. But I get that when I see Irish players, I get that when I see other teams, but that was always a doubt in my mind when I looked at England. Did the shirt mean that much to them? I think they preferred playing for their country. Whereas I think now you look at the group and he showed them, which is, should you have to do that? But he showed them how much it is to wear an England jersey. Lads, how much it should mean.
You're hyping them up.
No, we're just actually identifying the difference between success and failure. I mean, Steven Gerrard, he's another player who was often given a very bad press, very hard time when he didn't do for England what he was doing for Liverpool. This was always the allegation. You don't do for England what you do for your club. Paul Scholes is another example. And the things that, the camaraderie that you need, if you don't have it, we know from our own experience in Saipan. You know, we lost the captain, great player, home. It does matter. These are intangible until you do them wrong.
We had as well the Ferdinand comments, Keith, you know, and Lampard talking about cliques within the group along club lines. Now, I remember reading that and hearing it and thinking, that's nut stuff. But, like, you know, he has built this group, like Eamon mentioned about Rooney. Rooney was just sort of gently eased out of that squad. Southgate managed that extremely well. Joe Hart the same. You know, like he gambled with the goalkeeper who has made the odd mistake and stuff at club level. So, look, you know, nobody's going to get, well, in this side of the water, get too over the top. But he has done most things right up to now. And actually, to think he didn't even want the job when Allardyce was removed. He was, OK, I'm quite happy just
initially.
Yeah.
He's done really well. And the players that he's got at his disposal are nowhere near as good enough, good as the ones that have been available for the last managers, 2-3 managers. But as a group, they look stronger. We're going to pick holes in terms of where they're a little bit short, what they need to tweak. I think that can get you a long way as a team. They won't win it, in my opinion. They won't come close to winning it. But he has done a very, very diligent job. And it just shows the managers in the past, those issues at club level, the Chelsea, Liverpool, Man United divides, all these little cliques, it's the manager's responsibility. If he senses that within a dressing room or within the hotel, wherever they're staying, he needs to iron those creases out. You can't be having that at international level. Get a little committee together, get the big hitters together. This needs to be sorted for the greater good. You're playing for your country here, lads. Put that to bed.
It's very notable. The Irish players turn up. They love playing for Ireland. I mean, you guys, it's always been the same. But not in England. But there are things they will have to sort out, nevertheless, tactically. And they have a real opportunity now to go to the quarter-final. And if you get to the quarter-final, you're one step away from the semi-final. I know this sounds obvious. But if they get to the semi-final or the quarter-final in his first major tournament, they will be very happy.
Good
and they'll feel, they've achieved something, don't you think?
But there is a chance, and again, I'm not getting carried away, I'm still in Group 3. But like, the group they meet is Colombia, Poland, Senegal, Japan. Like, I don't know whether I'd want to come first
keep you awake at night.
or second. No, and then after that, it's Germany or Brazil, who haven't started off that great. So,
or Mexico.
You know, or Mexico, you beat one of them, all of a sudden you are in the semis, and all of a sudden we have a serious team on our hands, and we are getting carried away.
Yeah.